Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of Afterthoughts. Tonight I have recorded Mozart KV 33. It was actually a request that was made on YouTube to record that, and in order to do that, it's a short piece obviously, the famous one in F major, I dived into his Notenbuch, his notebook, his personal one, that he received from his father in 1764 in London. So it was wonderful to do that, and I can only recommend you of doing the same. You have two notebooks. You have one that belongs to Nannerl, and there you find pieces by a few by Wolfgang, I think 18 or so. There are pieces written by his father, and there are compositions of others, which his father noted down as exercise material for Nannerl in the first place and later for Wolfgang. So the second book is Mozart's, Wolfgang's personal sketchbook that he received from his father, and where he really started to compose and experiment. It's interesting to see the history of that book. It went to Meyerbeer. Meyerbeer gave it to Mendelssohn. It was in the Mendelssohn family until the beginning of the 20th century. Then there was made a publication on the moment that actually the manuscript was not lost, but they didn't know where it was. It was given to the German emperor, who gave it to the library in Berlin, and only after World War II it became obvious that it was in Krakow, in the library there. So this edition is really good, and it is not easy, since Mozart in his early years apparently wrote not very clear and clean, and certainly not this one, because the first 28 pages are written in pencil, and a very soft pencil that was not sharpened too often. So they had really to reconstruct this edition with photographs and things like that. So really interesting. So this, of course, in W.A.Mozart Ausgabe is really top notch. But I have to say one thing, and I have mentioned it earlier, I think, but it's a long time ago, that if you read a comment like this on the instrument, that for instance, I read here, so here, does the Mozart family already had an album for beginning piano lessons? I mean, 1764. Let's be serious, that those lessons were for keyboard, and I'm not saying for clavichord only, but for keyboard. Keyboard, you cannot translate keyboard in this sense, Klavier, by piano. So also here Angelstücke for Klavier, miscellaneous work for piano. No, miscellaneous work for keyboard. But that's between brackets. That shows that there is still work to do. But in addition, like in W.A.Mozart Ausgabe should correct that, I think. So these pieces, as I said, are highly recommendable of diving into, and you will see experimental work of a young Mozart, but really developing fast. And what surprises me is that sometimes you hear a kind of dramatic voice that Wolfgang would have later in his life, but for the most part these pieces are kind of atypical, and I can't see directly who he is imitating. Sometimes you hear the voice of C.P.E. Bach, maybe Christian Bach, obviously, so the things he knew. This last presto we did was Haydn-like. Probably, yes, of course he knew all that, but in general, you find pieces with an atmosphere that's really strange and nice and experimental. Yeah, and Mozart-like. So, only for that reason it's interesting to dive into that music. There is a lot of quality in that music, if I am entitled to judge that, but not all pieces, and I think the majority of them are suited to perform on a concert or on a recording. if you would make a recording of all that, it would be a documentary more than in general, and I talk about all pieces together, more than really top quality music. There are, however, also pieces that have very strong ideas, but as a whole, as I said, yeah, maybe have some weaknesses also. Technically speaking, these pieces are far from easy, really not. There are pieces that are easy to play, but for instance the first one that I have recorded tonight is, I think, quite a difficult thing. Let me take it, it's number 17, I think. Yes, so. So excuse me for the tunings. The C sharp is, I've done a complete retuning today, and I think the weather and the kind of humidity, there's something in the air that's not working for the instrument, and then the strings become a little bit tired, so to say, and although you tune them in perfect pitch, they don't sound like blending, and it changed during the recording, and now the bass is again, which is of course terrible in this piece. I hope in the recording it's better. So, but it's difficult music also here. Maybe. It's extremely difficult on clavichord, as you can hear. You have to play really, which is on a clavichord really difficult. So I have the impression that he might have had another instrument in London that it's much easier, but also not too easy on a harpsichord to play that far on the key. On a piano, very early piano, tafel piano, this is of course again easier. But maybe there's a kind of abstraction as well. There are some pieces really very orchestral thoughts. So another one, for instance, I will not dive into too deep. This one is beautiful. I haven't recorded. Very strange modulation. Oh, beautiful. And then here. J.S.Bach. Dramatic. Continues. Number 14. And then very beautiful. I don't know the reason why I didn't include that, maybe the key. Okay, and then we continue to number 18 I haven't played, 19, not beautiful idea. So, 8 years old. Then number 20, very strange music. There are no trills indicated, all trills are added by me. And this is a very rough score, so if he had published that, he would have worked all things out, like harmonies like this. It's just a sketch. But even adding one trill a few drills can make a huge difference. Okay, so 21 we didn't do. Let's see. Okay, it's a little bit simple. 22, yes. Also here you hear Emmanuel Bach, but in a different kind of style. He's really experimenting with that. So maybe here, nice fugue. There are some strange things happening here for being a fugue, but I mean, he is 8 years old at the moment, and there was no Petrucci library for him to dive into like Weekend, so he had to work with the things he had. This I did. There's a really big opening. Perfect. I mean, as he masters a form really. Things come on time. That's what I mean. Beautiful. Didn't do this one. No, 28. So I'm not going to demonstrate them all because we would sit here until tonight. This one is a kind of minuet, which I did. So, good. This number 35 is really very orchestral-like. It's difficult to play, and because Mozart were very good in crossing his hands. Not easy. And a beautiful presto. Sorry. Oh, it's so late. Okay. So, that's really good music. So I really, again, I can only recommend of diving into this notebook, and you will discover many things and it will be fun to play, and if you haven't done already. So, and then this very strange klavierstuk, which is given often, and I did it as well when I taught 500 years ago, I think, by now. To young students, students that start playing piano. So this is one of the showpieces for the first degree here in Belgium, actually, after 3 years. This is really played to that piece. And I wondered when I played it now, because it is actually quite difficult and is very atypical for keyboard. With his left hand. Emmanuel Bach would become angry if he would know that somebody would give this to a student, because he would certainly argue that this ruins the left hand by diminishing the value of the left hand just to a kind of... But here, of course, it has an effect. I played legato on the left. so that you get a kind of counter melody. And then I added in the reprise the thirds. Which is not easy to do, and if you would like to do that, you have to play them from one movement. It's kind of division of energy. It's rather difficult, but that seemed to be fun. I thought to do something with that, and I must say I've enjoyed playing this piece. It was this one that was a request. Was a question if I could play that, and that's the reason why I bundled some of the other works as well. So that was it for today. It's about 11:30 and it was a long day, 4th of February today. Next time will be Mozart again, G major sonata, his 5th, and hopefully the instrument is perfectly tuned then again. And after that, as we mentioned in the previous episode, the partitas will be recorded from next month on, and I'm thinking of doing some live stream with you. Live stream practicing hours maybe, so that I just practice and let you witness that and ask questions, or just have a kind of interaction that's more direct than answering the questions in the description box. And if things go well with that, I would like to have some of the recording sessions on tape, so for the real record, so to say, on vinyl later. Also live streamed, so that you can witness really the birth of those recordings. That would be great. We'll see if that can happen. And maybe next time I know more about it. So stay tuned and thank you for listening. See you next time. Bye.